city you're coming in from. Very quickly on the bottom of the screen. For everybody joining in, welcome. My name is Paras Fatnani. I'm the co-founder and chief strategy officer at Seed Global Education. Today, we're running a session in partnership with WPI on the idea of the evolving sustainable future of IoT. So while we wait for a couple of more minutes to get started, if for all of you that are in the room now, about 120 plus folks here, if you can quickly in the chat functionality mention the city you're joining in from. Great to see people from across India, people from Delhi, Chennai, Ghaziabad, Mumbai, wonderful Noida, Coimbatore, Patna, Prayagraj, Tamil Nadu. We've got some folks joining in from Johannesburg today as well. Welcome, Tanya. From New Delhi, Palghar, Bangalore, Kolkata. Fantastic to see all of you here. We've got someone from Uganda as well. Wonderful, Mumbai. Great. Keep hosting. We're just 2 minutes into the session. We'll wait for another minute or two for more folks to join in. We're over 150 people here now. It's exciting to have you all here. Prayagraj as well. Welcome, Patna. Welcome, Swikriti. Great to see you all here. We'll just wait for another minute as we get started, and I'll take a moment to introduce the session as well as our speakers today. So great. Welcome, Rahul from Delhi. Then we've got Arun from Tamil Nadu. Great to see all of you here. Nearly about 175 of us here. So a couple of things before we get started. For the ones who are here, once again, welcome. In today's session, we will talk about the evolving sustainable future of IoT. Couple of house rules before I introduce the session. For any questions that you may have for our speakers today, please use the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen so that we can take as many questions as we can after the presentation. If there are any questions that the speakers ask you to respond to, please use the chat functionality at the bottom of your screen. Please do not post questions in the chat. Keep them to the Q&A section. We'll try and take as many as we can today to help you make more informed choices and learn a little bit more about this interesting topic that we're about to embark on. So just to introduce today's session, the evolving sustainable future of IoT. So today's talk will cover the journey of computing and explain how we've reached the era of Internet of Things, how everyday objects are becoming smarter than ever they have been, and finally move on to how do we move on to a sustainable future. Today's presenters, first I've got Dr. Aslam, who's the assistant professor in the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering at Worcester Polytechnic Institute. Dr. Aslam has received her PhD in computer science from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and has spent a year as a visiting postdoctoral research associate at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. The interdisciplinary nature of her research involves diverse domains, including machine learning, mobile computing, embedded systems, and ubiquitous computing. Her work has been published in top conferences such as MSoft, IFSAN, and Mobisis. So with that, and I've also got today with myself Amanda Kigley, who's the Director of Marketing and Recruitment at WPI Graduate Studies. Amanda sets the strategy for recruiting and identifies new communications tools to engage qualified prospects and students like yourselves. Her primary focus is to collaborate with colleagues and industry partners to assist with the development and recruitment of educational programs to meet the technical and educational needs of the changing workforce. With that, I'm going to take just a minute. We're nearly 255, 260 of us here. Lovely to have you all join us today. In just a second, I'm going to hand over to Professor Islam. But like I said earlier, again, if you have any questions about the session, please post them into the Q&A section at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And if Professor Islam or Amanda ask you to respond to anything, please use the chat functionality. With that, Professor Islam, pleasure to have you here, and I'll hand over the stage to you to take us through the topic of IoT.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Basim Islam. As Paras has already introduced me, I'm an assistant professor at the EC department at Worcester Polytechnic Institute. Today, I'm going to talk about how Internet of Things is coming, how it came where it is, how it is going to go in the future, and how we are looking at a sustainable future for Internet of Things and why it is needed. So let me start by sharing my screen. All right. So the title for today's talk is The Evolving Sustainable Future of IoT. So before we go into what IoT or Internet of Things is, let us first look into the brief history of computing. Like, how does it started? How did we come from computing to this large room size computing systems to this tiny Internet of Things? So we're going to divide this journey into several generations. The first generation of computing that is often called, has started in 1936, is called the mainframe computers. This is a time where a computer used to be as big as a room or even multiple rooms. And one of the most amazing articles of that time that came out from Dr. M. Turing is on computable numbers with an application to the enzymatic problems. And the mainframe computers, what were the purpose? The purpose of these computers were to do numerical operations, to do computations and solve hard mathematical problems that can progress science in math and physics and chemistry and other core science topics. From at this point, the people who were using the computers were usually the scientists or the people who are working in solving hard problems or doing large-scale mathematical problems. From then came the second generation of computing, which happened in 1966, where we saw the first personal computer. And that was a huge change where the computing system came from a group of people who were purely focusing on solving some specific mathematical problems to everybody. The goal of personal computing were to process documents, to share information, to that's when Excel, words, those started coming to the present. That's when people were using this to not only solve mathematical problems, but to also not only solve mathematical problem, but to also solve the problems in the real life, to save documents, to move from physical documents to digital documents, to share information, to emails. And then the third generation came in, which we call the mobile computers. So the personal computers, I don't know how many of you have seen the first computer. They were extremely big, a tiny monitor, but big in size. They were heavy. They were connected to power. They were not laptops. So the laptops, the mobile phones, the mobile computers came into the play in 1991, and which are called the third generation of computing. Now that is a very interesting generation, and because that's when the purpose of computing went beyond just information processing and information sharing. They become a lot more to us. They become our digital assistant. They become a communication medium, a location service, our social media platforms, information source. They become a camera. They become an entertainment unit. So one of the very famous quote from Mark Weiser in his article, The Computing for the 21st Century, which came in 1991, is that the most profound technologies are those that disappear. What does this mean? It means that if you think, can any of you think of your current world, current life, without your smartphone or any mobile phones? What are your thoughts? How do you think about if I tell you, okay, will you be able to survive for 6 months without any smartphone or any phones or any laptops? What are your thoughts? Can you answer in the chat maybe? Okay, even though I cannot see the chat, but I'll tell you my
There are
thoughts.
lots of responses coming. No, difficult, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
So most of us, it's no, right? Because it is now become an integral part of our life, and we do not think for a second time of when we grab our phone. It's something that's very obvious, very usual, very daily activity for us. And that's what it becomes, that it disappeared as a separate part of our life. It's not something that you go into this mainframe computing room, put on this card to do inputs, and it's a separate task. Now it becomes something that's a part of our life. And that's when they disappear. So they disappear mean that they are integrated into or weaved into the daily life, our daily lives. Then came the fourth generation of computing. Their rise happened in 2003 with one of the great articles that called Smart Dust, communicating with cubic millimeter computers. And the idea of this era is that computing will be everywhere. It will not be just our smartphones, it won't be just our laptops, but everything we use. There will be tiny cubic millimeter scale computers, which will be able to compute and communicate. And they will be not only looking into what we are inputting them, only just what we are putting in our phones, but also what's happening in our surrounding. It's going to know the context, it's going to know our activities, and give us essential and important feedback so we can take more educated decisions of different activities in our life. So this generation of computing, which is called the Internet of Things and wearables. So the internet here is not, it's more than just the internet we use, it's how they're connected, the interconnectivity or the network. Things are everything that we use, everyday objects. And the wearables are for the interesting term that comes into that the technology that we wear. It can be our smartwatch, it can be a glass, which we want to be smart, it can be a clothes, which we're progressing forward to making smart materials or smart fabrics. It can be a smart shoe that can tell us, okay, your walking posture is not the most beneficial. And at one point, you may get this certain pain-related diseases, so you should correct your postures. Those are the type of feedbacks that we envision by this generation of computing. And this generation is often divided into three parts. The first part is called cloud computers. So all these tiny cubic millimeter devices, we are saying they're going to collect data, they're going to communicate. But because of their size, they're often very small, that they do not have sufficient processing power to process the data. So the solution that we came up with, we are going to collect all this data and send it to the cloud computers, which are large-scale computing systems at any corner of the world, which can process this data and give us the feedback. Now, everything we use from Facebook to YouTube, everything is relying on the cloud computers. When we're using or when we're using Zoom today, we do not know where the Zoom server is. It can be in India, it can be in the United States, it can be in Caribbean. I have no idea where it is. So that is the power of cloud computing. It takes the computing out of the place where we are currently in, where the processing is needed. Then I'm going to skip the cloud computing. I'm going to come to it last. And then the Internet of Things part, which is the core of what we are going to talk about today, is saying that these everyday objects will not be alone. So let's say my smart shoe can tell me that my posture is not the right one. But along with that, if I have, let's say, a smart watch that can also detect what is my heart rate, what is my pulse, what is my body temperature, my ECG, it can also tell me that is my my wrong footing or the change in my posture is something due to a habit, or is it because I am having um, a minor heart attack, or I'm having some abnormality that's going on in the system and I'm losing consciousness? So multiple information together can tell us a lot more than one of it can do it. And that is the core of the Internet of Things. Then the crowd computer is saying that, okay, it's for doing everything, for doing the computing, we need information. We need to know how we can detect if there is a heart attack. We need to detect how there is a change in the posture, which is the correct posture, which is not the correct posture. And crowd computers are giving us two benefits. One, it gives us more information because the crowd are the people, the users who use it, but it also gives us a distributed computing system where each people can process a small amount of data locally to give us more input instantly, because in a cloud computing, we rely a lot of the internet connectivity. And the communication networks are not always the best or not always the more reliable. So the crowd computers give us two benefits, giving us a lot of information, a lot of feedback, a lot of labeled data from which we can learn, and also gives us some potential potential platforms or potential opportunities to give us very quick feedbacks. Now, what is the core of Internet of Things? What is the parts in an Internet of Things? So an Internet of Things consists of a data generation part, which is usually the sensor. The things can be wearables, it can be meters, it can be buildings, it can be the generators. And once it sends the data using sensors and actuators, it sends this data to this cloud service. It can be a data center where the data analytics happens. So where we process the data. And then it comes back to the actuators, and then back to the feedback comes back to the thing itself. Now, the problem is that sending the information, all the raw data, then coming it back, it has significant delay. And as I was mentioning, it's a problem when it comes to the communication reliability. So in the last few years, one of the things that has been risen by the researchers and the developers and the community is edge computing, where we are saying that we will have another processing unit which is closer to the source of data. So if you think about a house and you have multiple enough things, your edge might be something that's inside your house. It can be your Amazon Echo, it can be your Google Home, and it is processing some of the data. Okay, that's good. But what we have found that there is a limited bandwidth. The bandwidth is a physical limitation of how much radio frequency we can use. We cannot increase it, but the number of IoT devices are increasing. That means we are putting more devices into the same spot, which often results in data drop, which often results in contest between different devices and delays. And also, communication is often the highest energy hungry component in Internet of Things. So how to address this to? To address this to, the recent trend is to look into on-device computing, that instead of sending the raw data, can we process some of the data on the device? And this is possible because of the growth that has happened over time for low power and small microcontrollers, microprocessors, or even other processing units. But the problem that comes with this on-device computing is they have low processing capability because they're tiny, they have small memory footprint, and they also have limited energy at a time. So how to address that? And these are often, like at least I call them the extreme edge devices, because they are the very low power, very small memory, very small processing power edge devices. So the fifth generation of computing tries to address that. And there are a few things that came up. So I'm going to not talk about all the new things. There's a lot. It will take a lot of time, but I'm going to mention three of them. The first one is earable computing, which is computing near your head and ear. I'm going to talk about battery-free computing, which is a sustainable solution. and then Internet of Materials, which is the second step of more sustainable computing system. So these are the three articles that I'll highly recommend any of you to read that talks about each of them. For Yearable Computing, it's a Yearable Computing, a new era to think about. It's by Dr. Romit Roy Chaudhary from University of Illinois and Urbana-Champaign. There has been this work, The Future of Sensing in Batteryless, Intermittent, and Awesome from Professor Josiah Hester from Georgia Tech University. And Internet of Materials, a vision of computation materials from Gregory Abaut from Georgia Tech and Northeastern University. So these three articles set the tone or the vision of how we are seeing this three area to develop in the near future. So I'm going to briefly talk about yearable computing. So in the last year, 114 million AirPods, only AirPods, has been sold by Apple. That's a lot. And we have more than just Apple AirPods there. Like almost every companies have their own AirPods. It can be wired system, it can be wireless system, it can be in-ear, it can be over-ear. So these are headphones. And the glasses, the smart glasses, there's one came from Ray-Ban with collaboration with Facebook. There is a Snapchat glass. And all of these comes with sensing parameters and microphones, and some of them come with even come with motion sensor or cameras, but very few with cameras though. And then the AR VR, the metaverse, the Oculus, the HoloLenses, all these are added under our head and has this unique opportunity to be able to sense and compute, which previous versions of computing did not have. We are often using smartphones, which are in our phone, smart watches, which are in our hand. But these are something near ear and head, which gives a unique sensing opportunities. So the earable computers often have multiple, with the speaker, it often have multiple microphones. It have Bluetooth for communication, motion sensors, vibration sensors. And all of this enables a huge line of applications which were not there before. So it can do for acoustic and speech processing, multimodal sensing, breathing and eating monitoring, like how is it mindfulness tracking, doing precise localization using this motion sensors, spatial, audio, sound source localization. So these are some of the very interesting problems that are being solved by the earable computing domain. So the vision is that earable computing will go in a range where we will have a bunch of different applications that are dedicated for these computers, where this tiny AirPods or this tiny and this Google Lens sort of glasses will be able to sense, compute, and give us feedback, navigate us in a shopping mall maybe. So I will show a very quick video of one application where we're using headphones for localizing cars and showing us where they are, how far they are. So we can alert pedestrians to put up their headphones and do not bother to look in the right and left when they're crossing the road or even on the road. And often it's affected by being a victim of accidents because they were not looking where the car is coming from. So let me quickly show it to you. So you see that we can see where the car is coming with these blue lines coming as cars, and we can see where the car is where the car's location is. The darker color indicates that okay, it's more closer to us. And here, because there is no car, we see red. That means there is no car in the area. Next, I'm going to quickly talk about the batteryless, the intermittent, the batteryless computing. That is where we are first hop into the world of sustainability. So according to ARM, there will be 1 trillion devices by 2035. That's a lot of devices. Now, the question is, how do we power 1 trillion devices? Now, the obvious is we have batteries, right? We're going to plug in batteries and it's going to run. But think of if even half of these 1 trillion devices are powered by batteries, changing or replacing these batteries of these numerous devices is very inconvenient. And let's do some math. So let's say one battery lasts for 10 years. That's what we expect to do. And if we even do that, we will be changing 274 million batteries every day around the world. That's a lot of batteries. That is similar to the volume of 9 Empire State Buildings. So just think of how much waste we are going to put into back into our earth, to the soil, or to the water bodies. And they're unsustainable, and they are one of the biggest bottleneck in the growth of the IoT industry. So what is the solution? The solution is to look at the alternatives like renewable sources. It can be solar, it can be kinetic energy, it can be thermal or radio frequencies. And the core problem of this intermittent computing is that we can only compute when these energies are available. And often renewable energies are not available all the time. Here you see when the cloud blocks the sun, we cannot compute. And in traditional computing, when let's say you're working on a Word document and unplug your system, you log in, it's all gone. And that's exactly the main problem of intermittent computing, because the power goes off so frequently, we could never finish the process. So there has been a huge volume of work to solve this problem with checkpointing. We are doing task-based modeling to save the data so that we do not restart after power failure, we resume after power failure. And here I'm gonna again show a small video of one of the coolest work that came for battery-free computing, which is a battery-less Game Boy. So it's a full Game Boy with the whole emulator, which processes everything on device. It plays the game, and let's see how it works. So this is one of the applications, which is like, we are saying that this is one of the, we are going to play with these games, but what are the main applications we are looking for battery-free computing are monitoring health, for passively monitoring health, for preserving biodiversity, for looking into the catastrophe, the natural catastrophes and monitoring them, to go beyond to the places where it's hard to deploy systems and change batteries, to the everyday infrastructure monitoring. So everywhere we can replace the batteries, we are going to replace the batteries with this battery computing. And currently we are working on machine learning and deep learning in these tiny devices, and allow not only sensing, but also high intensity processing in these devices. So we can get early feedback, we can get quick responses. The last thing I'm going to talk about, hopefully I'm not taking too much time, is the Internet of Materials. So now we have this battery computing, right? But how can we make it a lot more less power consuming, so it becomes part of the everyday objects and materials we are using? How we can bring battery computing into our everyday objects? And the vision paper that came for it was by Dr. About, is the Internet of Materials, a vision of computational materials. And all this started with the famous line of Mark Weiser, is the most profound technologies are those that disappear. So how to make ubiquitous computing disappear? That's the question we're asking here. Because the second line of the same article says that they weave themselves into the fabric of everyday life until they are indistinguishable from it. So now what we want is using this sustainable computing in such a way that we do not, when we write with a smart pen, let's say I have this pen and this is a smart pen, it looks like a pen, it feels like a pen, it weighs like a pen, it writes like a pen, but it has the capability to, let's say, understand if someone else is forging my signature. And with that, there's three main things that is important for making this happen. One, the size. this new Internet of Materials needs to be up the same size, it's going to be tiny, so we can retain the size of the everyday objects we're used to use. The cost needs to be low. We do not, I do not know how many of you will use a pen that can detect if someone is using your pen to forge your signature if it costs, let's say, $1,000, compared to how many of you will use it if it costs, let's say, $1. Not a lot, right? And the third thing is the form factor. So as I was mentioning, the pen needs to look, feel, and work like a pen first. That's its first goal. That's its first purpose. The identifying the signature comes later. And here I'm going to give you an example that is of making everyday objects and surfaces computational is this work that makes a good old sticky note smart. So this is a sticky note that we often just write, put somewhere, and when it's done, we tear it about and throw it, but making it some same form factor, same size, same thickness, but has the capability of having a microphone, so listening to what we are saying to it, recording that and sending it to somewhere. So let me show another small video, and I promise that's the last one, that shows how that can be used.
And thin form factor, like a Post-it note. Mars stickers offer a diverse set of applications and interactions. Leveraging a thin paper microphone connected to Mars, we can enable audio or speech communication. The Mars audio tags can be embedded in a conference brochure and used as an extended microphone for central audio control, allowing the audience to ask questions to the presenter.
What are the power requirements of your prototype?
They can also be used for extending the hearing range of smart home devices to particular areas or appliances. For example, a Mars tag sticker on the refrigerator could allow a user to communicate with a faraway Alexa and update their shopping list.
Alexa, add eggs to my shopping list.
Alexa, add eggs to my shopping list.
I've added eggs to your shopping list.
Mars tags can also detect multiple discrete touch points. Powered by 2 photodiodes and leveraging inductance-based touch sensing, we create game controllers using Mars tags with 2 buttons to play the classic game of Pong. We can also show the communication of unique IDs using capacitive sensing and Mars tags powered by photodiodes. For example, a waiterless restaurant can equip its menus with unique IDs to distinguish orders. Swipe-based direction control using capacitive sensing is also possible with a Mars tag. For example, we can command a light dimmer with our tag to change its brightness. In the future, Mars stickers open the possibility for building maintenance-free interfaces embedded on everyday surfaces and objects, which support natural-like touch, swipe, and talk input.
So this is the last video I wanted to show. And what it shows that we're moving forward the future, where we are going to use all the different modalities that comes to us to process in a sustainable manner and have this battery-free future for Internet of Things integrating with materials, so they do not look like a bulky object that screams, okay, I am a smart plug, I'm a smart bulb, but works as a bulb, looks as a bulb, accessible with smart capabilities. So that's the sustainable future of Internet of Things we're moving forward. That's all from me, and I hope it was interesting and beneficial to all of you. Please feel free to ask questions, and I'll be happy to answer if you have any.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Professor Islam. I wanted to take a question or two while there are several coming through. So firstly, for everybody attending, please post your questions in the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. We'll try and take as many of them as we can through this time. First question, Professor Islam, is coming from Kishan. He says, how does IoT influence the development of small cities?
So thank you so much, first of all, Kishan, for the question. So I think IoT is definitely important, not for just developing smart cities, but also smart villages, or even putting in development in remote corners of the world. Because something Internet of Things brings that is hard for the traditional approaches is they are cheaper, smaller in size, and can sense the environment in much more granular way than other devices can, or more large-scale devices can. So they're easier to integrate in life. And like few applications of smart cities are infrastructure monitoring, to knowing if a building requires maintenance before something goes wrong, because it's often easier to prevent any problem than solve the problem after it happened. Then there is work that goes on for smart parking. There's work that goes on for powering the cities with green energy. Now, when we're doing that, it is important to know that how can we intelligently use the power that we are harvesting? So if there's no person in a room, do we even need to have the AC on or the fan on, the lights on? We don't. To know that not to have lights on when there's no one at home is something that's preserving the energy. So these are some of the applications that allows us to go for a more sustainable, smart future for cities and infrastructures.
That's very well put. I'll take one more question. There's quite a few coming in, so great to see this engagement. Professor Islam, Gaurav asks about the security aspect of IoT devices. You want to elaborate a bit on that?
Sure. Thank you so much, Gaurav, for the question. And that's a very important aspect, because the goal of IoT is to sense and understand the context, the activities around human. It can also give us a lot more information that we want people to know. For example, the way your lights are turning off when there's no one at home can tell other people when there's someone at your home, when they're not, when you sleep, when you wake up, when you go to the kitchen to cook your lunch or breakfast. And these are not the information you want people to know, because that has not only the security threat of stealing your data, but also much more security threats that can go on. So that's why there is a huge area of research that goes on the security of Internet of Things, how you can encrypt this data, how you can send this data in such a manner that they cannot be decrypted and they cannot be known. So in security and privacy of Internet of Things is a huge and active research area, and it has a huge potential to grow more and make IoT more usable and more reliable for us to use.
Great. There's several questions coming in, and I'll try and take a few right now. And for everyone listening in, what we'll do is we'll take a few questions at this stage. We'll have Amanda present to us about WPI as well, and then come back and take more questions as well. So I request you to keep posting. If you see a question which is in the domain of what you want to ask, instead of typing the question again, it may be great for you to upvote an existing question. That tells us that there is more interest in this question, and I'll make sure that I cover that as the conversation continues. The next question, Professor Islam, is around is semiconductor technology related to IoT, which is something that Kamal has asked.
Right. That is an interesting question, and yes, they are, because the more smaller semiconductors and the more energy efficient semiconductors we can make, the more efficient and tiny and reliable and more intelligent IoT devices we can develop. Because that's how, if you see that in the last few years, the last decade, that's where this battery-free computing came into place, and why that happened, for mainly two reasons. First, the energy harvesters become more efficient, so we can harvest more energy from the same amount of energy in the environment. And the second one is that the processors are becoming much more low power. So they require lower energy to do the same thing it required before to have maybe 6 times or 10 times more energy. And that is where we find the optimal point to use this ambient energy around us to power up these low power processors to make sustainable IoT devices. So definitely the progress of semiconductor will have this effect.
Great. There are several questions coming in. There's one from David who says, as we advance in IoT, does it have a possibility of taking away our privacy? And I think you've answered this in some regard already. But when it comes to personal privacy, is there something additionally that you want to add on?
Sure. So that's a valid and important question. And as I was mentioning, there is active research areas. For example, I'll give you an example from one of our works is we have this home hub devices like Google Home or Amazon Echo. And these listen for the keyword, the Alexa or OK Google, and it starts sending the data after that. But when it sends those data after that, the data that is going to the cloud for whatever our question is can also have the voices of other people around us, can also have the information whether the TV is on, whether your washing machine is running on, whether there's babies in your house. So one of our work was to design filter that goes on these home hub devices to only pick out the user, the speaker's voice, and get rid of the other voices. So the only information that goes to the cloud is what you were speaking to it, nothing else. So there are some of these examples of some of the work that has been happening to preserve the privacy. Because yes, we are collecting more data. That definitely entails we are gonna lose some privacy, but that's not true if we work intelligently and preserve the privacy on the device. That is one of the reasons that on-device computing or computing the data near the source of data is important, because that way we are not sending all the data, all the raw data, all the information to the cloud, but rather keeping the information locally and only sending what is required through communication.
Great. We'll take 2 more questions before I let Amanda in for her presentation. Very quickly, Mr. Islam, how to, there's a question that's coming around, how does one work around the area of increasing accuracy of the IoT industry?
That's a very interesting question. And that's something we have been working on is to understand, like, for example, deep neural network or artificial intelligence has shown a lot of promises and progress over time. And when we are trying to run this on tiny Internet of Things, we often see that we have more work. So we have more work than we can afford. So for example, if you look at the supply budget trend, we have less budget, we have more demand than the supply. Mm-hmm. So what we are trying to do is try to identify what is the most important thing to process. So let me give an example. So let's say you have a GoPro, a body camera, you're recording. Now, when you're not moving and you're looking at a non-moving scenario, let's say you're looking at a mountain, nothing's happening in the mountain. Do you even need a 60 frame per second recording? No, 2 frames is more than enough. But let's say now you are running, like biking downhill to the same mountain, and there is a lot of other people around you. Now that's the scenario where you want the 60 frames per second to understand the information in around you. So those are some of the techniques or some of the adaptation, or we call it approximate computing, to understand the diversity of the data, to semantic meaning of the data, to understand the context, to allow to process what is needed to process and avoid redundant processing. So that is one way of progressing the accuracy in the IoT industry.
Fantastic. I'll take one more question, and for everybody that's posting questions, please keep putting them into the Q&A tab. After the presentation, we'll come back. Professor Islam is staying with us. We'll take as many questions as we can. And like I said earlier, please ensure that you upvote a question if there's one that is similar to what you want to ask. Take the time to just read through the questions. It'll help us know which ones are of higher interest. The next question, Professor Islam, is from Reshma, who says, when we deal with millions of IoT devices, we tend to have a lot of telemetry. How can we process and leverage such huge amount of data without storing everything and not missing important insights?
That's an amazing question. So far, we have been mostly working on it from the AI side is inferring the data on device. But the next step is actually to learn from those data, because storing all the data is definitely not the best solution because there's so many of them and storage is expensive. But what we want to do is a two-step approach. Step one is to understand which data are beneficial to be saved. So if we have, like I was mentioning, instead of having the 60 frames per second when you're not having interest something moving in your frame, the saving 2 data points is efficient and sufficient for the application. On the other hand, when you need more, save more data when there's more diversity in the data. So that's one, how which data is good to approach or important to save. The second one is actually learn from those data online. So when we put this IoT devices and the sustainable IoT devices, theoretically, they are never going to die because they're using this ambient energy, which is always there. And so they're going to last forever. But the scenarios just change. So if you have, let's say, sustainable IoT devices on let's say, a Impala, and you want to understand their habits, where they are, how many of them there are, how many miles they run, and all this information, what they're doing, how they're doing is going to change because they're going to migrate when the winter comes in. They're going to grow up, and how they behave, how they walk is also going to change. What they eat is going to change. When there's winter, they're probably going to not move as much as when they're moving in summer because there's more grass to look for. Or maybe it's the opposite. In fall, they're going to move more because there are certain areas which has more grass and certain areas which dried up. So these are some of the things that we need to adapt. We need to learn from this data online. So online learning from the existing data on device is another step that we need to take to go for the future of sustainable IoT.
Fantastic. I want to take a quick minute here, firstly, to thank you, Professor Islam, for continuing to stay and answering questions for us. There's several more, and I'm going to come back to you. But as so many of you are interested in this domain, I thought it is also a good moment to bring in Amanda, who will talk to us a little bit about WPI. WPI is offering a application fee waiver. More details of that will come through the session. So please, for everybody who's interested, stay on. We will share this information with you in a couple of minutes. But I want to bring in Amanda, who will talk to us about WPI now in just a minute.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that introduction. And Professor Islam, what a wonderful presentation. Just checking everyone can see my presentation, but wonderful. Yep. So WPI, I'll give you a brief overview about WPI, talk about some of our programs, facts and figures, and then talk a little bit about our application. So WPI was founded in 1865, and it was part of the Industrial Revolution. And it's the third oldest technology university in the States. Professor Islam is a prime example of our faculty here at WPI. They're engaging, they're passionate, they are applying real world learnings to our students so they have an immediate impact on industry, on their careers. So what WPI is founded on is both theory and practice, meaning what you learn in the classroom isn't just theory, book knowledge, it's actually application that you can apply then, whether it's through our project centers or through projects, internships, or if you're currently working at WPI, applying from day one of class on the job, utilizing those tools and techniques that you learn about. So this first picture is what WPI looked like back in 1865, and the picture below it is what we currently are. Currently, right now, we're larger than 7,000 students. 5,000 of those students are undergrads, and we have over 2,000 graduate students. And we have small class sizes that are taught by our WPI faculty. So they are the ones that are leading the research. In addition, they are also the individuals that are teaching our classes. And WPI at a glance, some interesting facts and figures. 36% of our graduate population are international students, and 100% of our graduate students receive one-on-one support from our student success team. These are individuals that work with students from day one of class to the end of class. They check in with you halfway through your class, ensure things are going well. In addition, they help you find additional resources if you need a tutor, library, software, what it might be, but they're there to support you throughout your college experience. We have over 400 corporate partnerships and companies that recruit WPI students, whether they come to campus for our career fair, internships, on-campus interviews, job postings, in addition to speaking to our students about job opportunities as well and industry trends. And we have over 65 graduate professional development programs for our graduate students each year. And we have over this past year of individuals that graduated, we had over 742 master's degrees awarded and 62 doctoral, and over 1,000 for our bachelor's students. Now, WPI is located in Worcester, Massachusetts in the United States. We are the second largest city in New England, and Worcester is really a bustling metropolis, right? It's an urban city that is really culturally diverse, where we have a minor league team. So the Red Sox, they are located in Worcester. We have different theaters, music venues, and tons of restaurants. We are known as Worcester is the new IT town by NPR, and we have over 11 colleges in the area with over 34,000 students, and it's easy access to Boston, New York City, beaches, skiing, and more. So it's very central. We have a commuter rail where you can get to Boston, New York City as well. But it's a great location, very diverse, and a great opportunity for you to be part of a community. So as Professor Islam mentioned, WPI has 4 distinct schools. We have the School of Engineering, School of Arts and Science, and the Business School and Global School. And each one of these schools have deans that are associated with that school that leads the mission of the school. And with that, this is a short listing of WPI graduate degree programs where we have over 50 plus degree programs here at WPI, and they're offered on campus. In addition to on campus, we do have courses within this curriculum that you can take online as well to provide you with that flexibility. But for more, you'll receive these slides. You can always click on the link in here to see all of our graduate programs that we offer at Worcester Polytechnic Institute. Now, some of the questions that people might be asking is around admissions, qualifications, and requirements. So this all depends on your program of interest. So as part of that, you can click on this link. It will provide you with, if you select your program, for instance, if you're interested in electrical and computer engineering, it will tell you what the program requirements are to apply and what materials are required as well. But typically it's a relevant bachelor's degree from an accredited university. And typically what we see in all of our majors is a major GPA of 3.0 or greater. If you don't have that, that's on a 4.0 scale. We understand life happens. So you can always work with us to boost your application as well. But we say that because that's what we typically see. Some people do fall above and some do fall below. But we want to make sure you have the appropriate background to be successful, because we want everyone that comes to WPI to be successful. And then, as I mentioned, step 2 is to review your application requirements as well. And there's a link there. Now, our application deadline, especially for our international students, we say the deadline is March 1st, because it takes about 2 to 8 weeks after we receive all your supporting materials and you press submit in order to review your application. We do take a holistic view, as I mentioned. So we're looking at all the documents that you're supplying. So your statement of purpose, your letters of recommendation, your transcript, if you have a resume, any supporting documents, any research that you've done, we also review that as well. And the faculty are reviewing these. And for our international students, as part of the application, we do have a language requirement for students that are looking to have a visa. So you have to submit TOEFL's, IELTS, or Duolingo scores, and then I provided the minimum scores that WPI requires for the applications. In addition, we do offer English language test waivers. And in those situations, it's if someone's been in the US for 3 years or more working, or individuals have 2 years of full-time college study completed within a country that English is the primary language. And then in addition, if you do have a score waiver, you can always email us at grad@wpi.edu. In addition, what I will do is I'm going to put in the chat a link to a application fee waiver for this. In order for that link to work, you can copy it. You have to start your graduate application, and then it will waive the fee from that immediately. But in addition, if you want to connect with us at all, here is a QR code where you can scan it and ask for more information. If there's a particular area of interest, please do. You can scan the QR code and inquire now on your smartphone. But if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out. And I look forward to engaging and speaking with everyone.
Amazing. Thank you, Amanda, for that. Very helpful. There are a couple of questions coming in around the process as well, and I'll try and cover them in the next couple of minutes. I'd like to bring Professor Islam back on screen as well, so all three of us can sort of answer questions at this stage now. I want to pick up where we left off. There are some folks who've asked about the IoT area itself as well. So Professor Islam, one question to bring to you, continuing from before. There's a question from Sonal who says, what are the challenges to the widespread use of IoT? And what is the difference between IIoT and IoT?
Okay, so for the first question, there are several challenges. So one of the main challenges or interesting challenges I'll mention is every people are different. We each have different habits. We each have different way of living life. And one of the challenges of IoT is should we make everything generalized or should we go personalized? Because once we go personalized, that's where we can provide a lot more meaningful information to the user. So to give an example, so let's say we are monitoring breathing rate of a person. So someone or let's say blood pressure, right? So we often say 80, 120 is the regular blood pressure, but someone by default can have a blood pressure of high blood pressure their default is 90 and 130. So if we make a generalized system, it will always give this person that, oh, your blood pressure is high, your blood pressure is high, even though that's normal for that person. And at one point, this person is not going to use the system at all because it's giving you wrong answers. So making personalized or knowing personalized IoT devices is something that's going to be very beneficial, and it's definitely one of the challenges. The communication is a challenge, how to communicate for all this large number of devices, how we make this number of devices compute, what to compute and what not to compute. I've already talked about it. And another thing is how to make them usable and sustainable. And it's not like a gimmick that person use one day, oh, wow, that's cool, let's use it. And after that, I don't want to use it. So these things needs to be reliable. They need to be intelligent enough to give you the correct information. They needs to be adaptive so it can evolve over time with the changes of the user. They needs to be programmable so it can be updated if there's a need of firmware changes. We're not going to go ahead and look at where that specific Impala is, cache the Impala, change the code and put it back on. We don't want to do that. And most of all, it needs to be user-friendly. So the human or even the Impala that are using the sensing system or the IoT does not feel like a burden, does not feel that there's something that's bothering them. So these are some of the characteristics that needs to be preserved in Internet of Things. So that's one of the questions for first question. For the second question of IoT, I believe you're talking about Internet of Intelligent Things.
Yeah,
And
I believe that's the area. Yeah.
so that is, I would say, the second step of IoT. The main difference is that in most of the Internet of Intelligent Things is those things itself has processing capabilities. So it does not only sense and send those data to some cloud to process and be back, but they are also adaptive and intelligent enough to know what data to process, what data to send, do on-device computing. So, and make intelligent decisions of those. So I would say that's the main distributor or distinguish between these two. They are essentially the same thing. It's the second step. So you can say it's version 2 of IoT.
Great, great. Thank you, Professor Islam, for that. At this point, I'm going to pose the questions for just a minute. Please keep posting them in the Q&A box. We'll try and take them as we continue. We've got 10 more minutes, so we'll try and cover as much as we can. But right now, I'm going to bring up a quick poll for many of you that are interested in WPI and thinking about the US. Tell us a little bit about what your interest level is actually. Are you considering pursuing a specialized master's degree in the US? On a scale to 1 to 5, tell us how keen you are. 5 being you're very keen, 1 being you're not keen. So a poll's popped up on your screen. Just very quickly, on a scale of 1 to 5, how keen are you to pursue a specialized master's degree in the US? 5 being very keen, 1 being not so keen. We'll give it another 15 seconds for many of you to answer. This will help sort of, answer some of your questions that are coming up as well. On a scale of 1 to 5, how keen are you to pursue a specialized master's degree in the US? 5 being very keen and 1 being not so keen. We'll close the poll in about 10 seconds. So for any of you that are still responding, take a quick minute and you can quickly vote your choice onto the poll. All right, let's see what the results look like. So you've got 33% of you very keen, 24 somewhat keen, about 32% as well who are in 2 minds, so they are considering but not too sure. Nobody not keen, and about 10% is slightly keen. So good to see that the interest levels are high. Nearly 85% of you are either keen or extremely keen. We shall try and answer a few more of the admissions related questions in this period as well. Amanda, I'll bring you the next question. There's a question from Flavian who says, how many of these 400 companies that you spoke about are looking to hire international graduates? And I want to actually add a little bit to that, especially talking about the STEM designated programs a little bit, if you want to elaborate about that.
Yes, so it all depends on the company. So as part of WPI, the majority of our programs are STEM designated programs, which allows students to have an extension on their visa. So their F1 visa, you receive 1 year of extended visa stay for employment. And on top of that, you receive another 2 years for your STEM designation. So you're allowed to have 3 years of working for a company. Now, it is sponsored through the school. It is not sponsored through the company at that time. So during that time, what we find is our students develop relationships and can find employment of a company that's looking to support international students beyond their STEM visa.
Great, and I just want to add one quick thing. So for anybody who ends up pursuing a STEM designated program, you end up getting 3 years of working rights to live and study in the US, which becomes a massive benefit for you to consider those programs, but also have the opportunity to work for any company initially while you don't have sponsorship rights. Apart from that, if you're pursuing a pure business programs, there are lots of companies today that are recruiting, and it may be something that you want to think about as you choose your program as well.
Even, oops, sorry, I'll just add to that. There are, at WPI, our business school programs are STEM designated. So there are STEM designated programs like operations, supply chain, business analytics, and information technology that do fall within the business school.
Fantastic. So for everybody, please have a closer look at the programs. I think that'll give you a better insight into which ones are STEM designated. There might be a merit in considering some of those as well. Amanda, one more question to you before I go back to Professor Islam. There are a few questions around funding opportunities for them, specialized master's program. Do you want to talk to us about how students currently have done it and what advice you may have for people considering as well?
Yeah, so we do offer different scholarships at Worcester Polytechnic Institute around funding, which there is a Dean's Diversity Scholarship, which is offered to 3 students a year, and it's a $20,000 scholarship. In addition, we have Dean's scholarships that each school has either 2 to 3 of those, and those offer a reduction in tuition as well, which costs about $500 per credit hour. So there's some of those. In addition, not many at the master's level receive teacher's assistant or RA assistantships. It's usually at the PhD level. However, there are some, I say some, small number, that can apply for that. It all depends. But if you're interested in a PhD, there's definitely the TA opportunities. In addition, we do offer graduate assistantships. Now, graduate assistantships at WPI are offered as paid positions. So you can work up to 20 hours a week and receive an hourly wage, and you can utilize that towards housing or towards your tuition as well. And then if you happen to be a WPI alum and you're listening, we do offer an alumni tuition benefit as well. But there are options out there. In addition, I know there are some organizations, especially in India, that are offering funding opportunities for loans for students to travel from India to the United States to study. But those are some of the scholarships that we offer and opportunities for you, but we're happy to talk to you more.
Great. Professor Islam, I'll bring you one question because that's something we get asked often about. There's a lot of interest around cybersecurity in particular. How does IoT, and I know for Saurabh, you've already answered that question into the chat functionality, but just for everyone else's interest as well, how is IoT related to cybersecurity as such?
Right. So if you think of it, what is cybersecurity? It's how we secure all the information that we have online, all the digital information. And that's exactly what IoT is giving us, a bunch of new dimension of digital information, which are being stored, which are being communicated over wireless, often mostly wireless, sometimes wired communication. So all the problems and all the questions that come in cybersecurity also are true for IoT devices, because when we're using cloud computing to process some of this information from the IoT devices, we are communicating. So there's communication security threats, that's for cybersecurity. Then the information is being stored on the cloud, how they're being stored, how we're preserving making the anonymous, how we're preserving their privacy. All the questions that's asked in the field of cybersecurity is also true for the field of IoT, because it's also a cyber entity that is giving us the information. The main difference is here we have also a physical component. So we often call this CPS, or cyber physical system. So it has a cyber component as a physical component. So all the cyber security questions are also true for IoT devices.
Fantastic. I see both of you have responded to several of the questions, and thank you for doing that in the interest of time as well. We're spot on at the closure of the session. So I want to come back to both of you and ask you, first to you, Professor Islam, for somebody who's trying to build a career in this domain, what advice do you have, and any leaving sort of parting thoughts that you want to leave students with?
So my suggestion will be to first try to understand or try to figure out what interests you the most. Even in IoT, there is several parts. There's communication, there's computation, there is the data processing, there is the security, all different dimensions. So first try to understand what excites you most, because when you're pursuing a career, you do not want to work on something that you feel like, nah, is there. You want to person that makes it, oh, wow, I want to answer that question. I want to solve this problem. So my first and foremost suggestion is find what makes you happiest and pursue that as your career. So even for this IoT, find what part of IoT you're most interested in, and then try to dig in to see what is the core basics of that. So often there will be some few books or papers that starts, like, for example, I mentioned three that are the three visions of those three specific aims. What are those? And then going to understand what are the latest work done. So one of the best way for graduate students to do that is to go ahead and look into the conferences and journals of that specific topic, the top tier conference and journals, and look into the papers, look into the names, what topics are being published most. And what of those, which names you see like, okay, that's interesting, that's fascinating, and dig more into it. That way you will know where it started and where it is now. So you will know if that excites you and make you see what path you need to follow.
Fantastic. No, thank you. That was very sound advice. Amanda, coming to you, any thoughts for candidates looking to apply to a specialized master's degree, and any tips that you want to give them on the application process itself?
Yeah, no. So thanks for that question. I think for anyone that's looking to pursue their master's degree in a specialized area is to really think, similar to what Professor Islam, think about what it is that you want to do in the future, because this is an opportunity to dive deeper into that area of study. And on your application, the best thing is to be yourself, right? Is to show who you are as a candidate and really speak about how you've grown and what you're looking to do. What is your outcome, right? And your goals of this. It's the best thing on your application that you can do. In addition, is tapping people that know you, your authentic self, and your capabilities of what you can do in the future for those letters of recommendation, because those are the people that are your support system. They're the ones that are encouraging you, and they're really what we're looking for, right? To see, yes, you want to pursue this, but these other people definitely see this potential and see your ability of what you can do. So there's a lot that goes into that. So be thoughtful about those letters of a recommendation and the people that you're tapping for. And know that as soon as you start thinking, we understand it can be a long cycle to make that decision. And that's okay, because you want to make sure it's the right program and right fit for you, because this is your future and what you're going to be doing. But we're always here to support you. And so I think it's a really exciting time.
Thank you, Amanda. And with that, one tip from my side for all of you considering a specialized master's program. I did this a while ago. Don't ask me how long back. I don't want to tell you how old I am, but think of this as an investment into yourself and your future. Cost is one factor, but it's the learning, it's the experience, and it's what the future beholds for you, and the opportunities that become accessible by the place you study and the country that you study in. So with that, I want to thank everybody that's attended today. I hope the session was useful for you, and Amanda, Professor Islam, and our entire team will be available if you have any further questions in the future as well. With that, thank you everybody for joining in today. Hope you have a wonderful evening, and all the best for your academic pursuits as well. Thank you.